Today's episode is for the hospitality tech founders, how you can generate buzz and excitement for your new product before launch.
What value does that deliver? What is your market category? Very specifically, you need to actually say what you do. I'm seeing a lot of companies not doing that. You need to explain what you do so that people don't immediately dismiss you because they can't understand. And then finally, what's the competition? And the competition in tech sometimes is a manual process. It might be spreadsheets. It might be something going through all of these other different websites or, whatnot. So it doesn't necessarily be a direct competitor software solution, but what is the alternative of what you're currently doing? And what I've started doing recently that I feel really strongly about is answering all of those questions just on one page.
This is Jack Brown, a marketer with a vast experience launching products and startups from her time as head of marketing strategy and product launch at Amadeus. She shared a step-by-step guide about product launch that could be worth thousands of dollars, but you can learn for free today. In the end of the chat, she shares some creative tactics that you can leverage to stand out from the crowd. So listen until the end and learn something new with Schillerin today. Let's go to the chat. What's up, hospitality? If you are new here, my name is Mauricio Schiller, your host, and you're listening to the Schillerin Hub podcast, a podcast made for the independent hotelier and for the industry in general. Today, we are actually talking to technology founders. If you're a hospitality technology founder and you are about to launch a product in the market, you are right now in the right spot. So switch on because I have someone really special to talk to you today. She has a rich career in marketing, including 6 years in Amadeus, 4 of those as the head of marketing strategy and product marketing. So welcome to the show, Jacki Schroeder-Brown. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Mauricio.
It's awesome to have you here as someone that has worked from Amadeus and probably launched so many different products in so many categories, and having you here to share some strategies and really a step-by-step guide for tech entrepreneurs like me. And I'm a bit selfish, so I want to learn things myself, and I hope that other tech founders there will get a lot of this content and learn a lot from you, Jacki.
You got it. I love teaching. You're right. I've done it over and over, but I was also a graduate school professor. So like the teaching side is something that I love. So let's do it.
Let's get to it. But before we get to our educational part of our podcast, we always start with the human first, because that's what really matters, is how we connect to the human level. And I have a question to you. Jacki, what kind of young Jacki were you in your teenagers?
Oh, I was the overachiever. I was involved in student government. I was the editor-in-chief of the yearbook and, honor roll. I was super well-behaved. And then later I figured out that actually following the rules is not that great. Like, it's not going to help you with innovation if you just follow the rules. You need to actually do things differently. So yeah, I've now become a little bit more of a troublemaker in my adult day.
But I love that you start like following the rules and like a high achiever. And how did you end up in marketing? Because the way that you saw, I think that you are thinking about being a president. How did you then change to marketing?
So I've always loved writing, even from being in like 5th grade. That was my favorite thing, is reading and writing. And so that always attracted me. I went to a school that actually had a marketing course in high school, and we had graphic design. So I got to take those as electives. Undergrad, I actually majored in public relations, and which I had no idea what it was, but I started in journalism, right? Like, you just explore all of these things. And then I ended up in marketing as my first job and started learning how to use all of those skills and things that I enjoyed, but how to actually make money with them. so that's really it, right? It was just, I like the storytelling, and how do you help companies then tell their stories? So that's what I've been working on throughout my whole career and what I've really enjoyed.
That's amazing. And So you worked for Amadeus for some time, and that is a big portion of your career there. How was that introduction to marketing and hospitality, and including that tech side of hospitality?
So prior to Amadeus, I am a career marketer, and I feel like one of the few people who's come into the hospitality industry and didn't have that experience. So I was never a hotelier. I kind of wish I was. I had all these other types of jobs now, but I did things like hair care and protein bars and vacuums. So I've worked with all these other large consumer brands, but then I also did some other B2B and e-commerce, and honestly stumbled upon this company. And I really liked the leadership that I was joining under, saw the opportunity, and that they could use a real boost in terms of marketing and content creation and storytelling and strategy. So that's what the start was. And 6.5 years there, really incredible time. Got to work, when I started, I was working just on Delphi and reworking their positioning, messaging, created a content strategy, and then got to replicate that over and over, continued to learn and improve every time I did that across our other solutions. When we merged with TravelClick, I also worked super heavily on the business intelligence products there, and then ended up leading the whole product marketing team and the marketing strategy. So suite of 30 solutions, and I started working on just one suite, and got to see so many great things come to life. And so now I'm consulting full time, working with other smaller scale-up startups to help them with these types of things and understand how to do it, because it is challenging if you haven't done it before, for sure.
Yeah, I can relate to it, so I can share how challenging it is. It is nerve-wracking. It is caused me anxiety. I'm always thinking that I'm doing the wrong thing. So it's awesome to have someone like you to help with your vast experience, and now with your consulting as well. And I hope that we can really share some great content today here for our audience and help others to understand the process. And if they then need more help, of course, to get in touch with you. But let's get to the core of our step-by-step guide on how to generate buzz and excitement of a new product before launch. So I would think that we start with research, right? How do I research and understand the specific needs of a new target market?
So you should absolutely do all of that research really before you even get super into developing the product. So you're reading all the industry news. You are talking to prospects that you think might have some of these challenges. You're going to some of the bigger events, and you're picking people's brains and trying to identify patterns and make sure that there is actual need and interest in what you want to do. Then, as you start doing that, so that's kind of the qualitative part, then you could do a quantitative as well. You could start doing more focus groups, you can do surveys, but that isn't always needed. You can just start getting something out there, but really it's talking to a lot of people and reading a lot. There is a ton of research out there, not just within our industry, but within other industries that might be applicable, and try to understand, do we have the same challenges here? Now, of course, if you have a current solution and you're trying to look to move into a different segment or a different region, you need to do the same thing. You need to actually go into those segments and into those regions and have those conversations.
And when you say now having that conversations in fairs and events, many founders I speak to, they are anxious to share what they are creating because they think that someone will copy their idea. What's your message to them?
You have to start somewhere. You have to get the buy-in. You have to understand if there's really a need for what you're offering. Mm-hmm. And that's really the only way to know if there will be a willingness to buy. Mm-hmm. And you can start with people that are trusted, people you've worked with in the past, people who are in your network. But I think you really do need that feedback to be able to be successful.
So, and then we have that conversation and we start preparing our value proposition, but how do I can effectively communicate the value proposition of my product to a potential customer without burning it?
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about positioning. It's something I'm super passionate about. And it really comes down to 5 different pieces. You need to identify who is your buyer, who is your ideal candidate, not just I could sell this to all of the people, but who really is the best characteristics of what you're looking to serve. What are all of your unique features that you have currently? And then what value does that deliver? What is your market category? Very specifically, you need to actually say what you do. I'm seeing a lot of companies not doing that. You need to explain what you do so that people don't immediately dismiss you because they can't understand. Mm-hmm. And then finally, what's the competition? And the competition in tech sometimes is a manual process. It might be spreadsheets. It might be something going through all of these other different websites or, whatnot. So it doesn't necessarily be a direct competitor software solution, but what is the alternative of what you're currently doing? And what I've started doing recently that I feel really strongly about is answering all of those questions just on one page. You just have a one-page document. There's no marketing messaging. There's no fluff. It is very clear, and you get everybody in your organization in terms of the leaders to agree and align behind it. So you have your founders, your head of sales, your head of product, your marketing. If you have service or support, right? Who are those key stakeholders? Get them all to say, yes, this is what we're trying to achieve before you start doing the sales and marketing messaging.
That's a very good one, actually. And what kind of content should I create to support that product launch then?
So I always start with the sales enablement content. So after you've done the positioning, then you work on your messaging. So how do you add some intrigue and excitement to what that is? But then you're going to do your sales deck, your sales sheet. Ideally, you can do a video. I love a good short demo video. There's a lot of companies now. You could use, I think it's Gong or Loom, should be able to record those, either inexpensive or free. And then case studies, if you have any beta metrics or early testimonials, all of that is fantastic. So I always start with the sales enablement materials because your sales team's going to need that from day one. Then your awareness content. So you'll have to have your social media posts, definitely LinkedIn, you have to be on there. And then you might want to empower different people on your team. So in your organization, do you have special content for your leaders to make the announcement versus other people within the organization? A press release is great. I'm a big fan of content and inbound in general. So creating a checklist or an article or something else to get people into your funnel because you're talking about the problem overall that they're trying to solve. Give them a piece of content to help them solve that problem, and then get them to your website where you explain that you actually help them solve that problem even faster and better and more easily. The other thing that you need to do then is, of course, have all of your digital foundational materials. You need a web page. You need, ideally, all of the flow to get people in through your lead generation, have everything trackable so that you can follow up with those leads with the sales team. I also recommend having a nurture series, just a general, whether it's for your whole organization, it depends on how big you are, or one product area, and follow up with those people. So anything else you can think of that you've seen work really well? Those are the things off the top of my head.
Yeah, like you got a very comprehensive way of getting the content. I'm just trying to understand if you are a founder of a startup in the tech world, so you don't have all that support, all the team, and the size and means to create such a comprehensive launch. What should I focus on?
You need your website. Even if it's a one-page website, you have your website, you have it branded, And you have to be really clear, as we talked about positioning, right? Really saying what it is that you do, why you do it better than anybody else, and who you're trying to serve. So again, those ideal customers. If you do that really well, and then as the founder, you and your leadership team are posting on LinkedIn, that is a great first step.
That's awesome. Thank you for this. Like in the case, like what would be, like you said about LinkedIn and have the website, what are the other best channels to reach the target audience for the hospitality industry specifically? Because I struggle sometimes to reach hospitality workers that are not from corporates on LinkedIn. What other channels are out there that we can use? Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the show and if you are learning something new today, please consider following the show, subscribe to our channel, or leave us a review. It helps us to help more people through the podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we're back on the chat.
So I think that's a great point, Mauricio, is your different audiences within hospitality are on different channels. I find the hardest audience to reach are those folks who are in operations because they're not sitting in front of a computer all day. They're on their mobile. And so how do you engage with them? They might be on LinkedIn, but they're not going to read a long white paper. They don't have time for that. So can you reach them in those one-off posts? The industry news, there are some really great industry news publications. So I still do think, especially in this industry, that that's really important. And then narrowing in on who your audience is and the types of events that they're attending. So for instance, high tech, of course, is a big event, and people are always talking about their technology, their new technology. I think that is pretty much a must-have to be there. You don't necessarily have to be exhibiting. You don't have to have a large exhibit, but being there, meeting the other players, potential partners is really critical. I was talking to one organization while I was there, and they said they focused on independence. I said, "Oh, are you going to the Independent Hotel Show?" And they hadn't heard of it.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay, so you really need to go to the Independent Hotel Show if that is your main audience. So those types of things are really important. It does depend on your audience. If you're in sales, marketing, revenue management, going to events that HSMAI is putting on is going to be really helpful. So understanding who is your buyer and what events, what channels, what associations are they most connected to is going to be key.
Spot on. Thank you for sharing. And Jacki, if we then start preparing all that content we're about to launch, how can then I actually measure the success of that product launch? It's just by sales, of course, but what else is out there that I can measure?
Yeah. And so I always like to think of a product launch as phases. So the first phase is that general awareness. Do people know this exists? And so that could be impressions. It could be visits to the website. Those are basically your early indicators. Are people generating, is the generation of interest happening, right? Then that's an indicator into what's going to happen for leads and then sales. So you need to see the early impressions, the site visits, perhaps it's download, engagement, really going up and higher. And that will help you understand what's going to happen from there. I am a big proponent of marketing having the same goal as sales. We are helping the sales team to drive overall revenue. And I've had many conversations throughout my whole career in terms of who's trying to take credit for the sale. And any team I've ever worked on in marketing, we're not trying to take credit. We are just trying to help. So whatever we can do to help the larger organization drive and get that business is always going to be great.
I haven't just question now regarding marketing sales. As you just mentioned, I worked with a startup during the pandemic, just really to learn how to sell. Yeah, I was just trying to learn how to sell. So I got a job from this startup, and they said that they don't invest anything in marketing, only sales, right? Their focus on only sales. What's your view on companies taking this strategy of only marketing or only sales?
So I think a lot of startups start with focusing only on sales. So they'll bring someone in who has existing relationships and try to really hone in on those connections. And to start, I think that's okay. You need to start somewhere. You need to drive revenue from somewhere. I do think working with someone who has a go-to-market strategy background or an overall marketing strategy background, even if it's a consultant, to help you give you some guidance in the beginning is helpful. But I think it's very common to not have a marketer to begin with across all of B2B, not just in hospitality tech. And oftentimes marketing doesn't come in until much later when people seem to hit a plateau of, they've brought on one salesperson, they brought on another one. So they're tapping out all of their existing relationships. And then they really need to scale. And that's when a marketer will come in to help create that larger awareness and drive the inbound leads. Wow. So I think marketing is really important, but I also think, is it the most important thing when you need to get off the ground? Dedicating headcount to it, I think, is challenging.
Fair enough. That's true. It's very challenging. So let's get to that then. So what would be the most essential marketing activities for a small team with limited resources then that is reaching that plateau but need to scale but don't really know what to do right now?
Yeah. So this is a lot of the conversations I'm having recently and working with different teams, and even so many people in my network. We're always exchanging ideas. You need to have that website. I'm going to keep coming back to it. You need to have a clear, helpful website so that if somebody does not know what you do, they can find out really quickly. You need to have a LinkedIn presence. That's number 2. You need to start doing some email. And so you want to have ideally a newsletter, and you could have that even quarterly. It doesn't need to be that frequently, but come out with some valuable information. Do you have some tips? Do you have some updates on your product? So what are you doing? You can mix it together. Do you have even your founder attending Mauricio's podcast? You can share that in your newsletter, right? So those different appearances, upcoming events, even if it's quarterly, I think that's a great step. And identifying what events are you going to attend for the year, whether they are hyper local or they're larger global events. Where is it going to make sense to connect with your audience? This industry is very focused on events and those in-person connections because it's hospitality. It's who we are. It's all about those people-to-people connections. So making sure you're planning and budgeting for some of those is going to be really important.
I was going to say that I get behind a little bit of the computer, the telephone, and actually get to meet people, because hospitality is all about shaking hands, seeing in the eye, smiling to each other, and building that trust, right?
It is. And that's what I love about this industry. It's so welcoming and friendly and so much built on those relationships.
Yeah, 100%. That's what makes us stay, right? And what would be some creative marketing tactics that we could use to really stand out in this crowded market that we serve?
So it is crowded. But that being said, there's a lot of opportunity for marketing still. So 7 years ago, I wasn't seeing a lot of people doing content marketing. And that's what I honed in on and really tried to create valuable, helpful content. And some of that was long form. Well, now we're seeing short form content is really going to be more helpful and engaging. So that's one part, right? Is yes, video, checklist, quick downloads. But then there's still this opportunity to stand out, because I'm looking at websites, and Amadeus is part of it, and part of that is my fault. And I like to think that maybe I was on the cusp of it but a lot of it all sounds the same. And some of that is because there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions. It's really hard to explain all of the things you do in a couple sentences if you have a lot of products. But I'm looking at, it's like everything says we're the number one hospitality software on their website.
There are many number ones, right?
So many number ones. Or they're using the same, we improve guest experience, or we help you drive revenue. I'm like, okay, but how? Like, how is that any different than the competition? And so there are some who I think are experimenting and bringing more of a B2C, this consumer lens. I only saw this last week. I'm really excited with what Cloudbeds is doing with their Rewrite the Rules campaigns. Have you seen these videos yet?
I haven't, no.
I will send them to you, but everyone else, check them out. They're so good. They're actual ads. I mean, they are well done. They're consumer-like ads that you would see on the television. They feature this older, stodgy-looking general manager who's very conservative and used to doing things his way. And I'm also biased because it's all women who are the ones saying, oh, we don't do that here. We have technology. So I love that part. And then not only do they explain what they're doing, but then there's a quick video overview of how the solution works. And it got me super excited because I have not seen anything like this in marketing in this industry yet. It feels bold and fresh. It's their Rewrite the Rules campaign. So I am really hoping we see more of that type of atmosphere. I think that's going to catch people's attention.
Please share these links with me. Not only I want to watch, but I want to put here on the notes of the podcast as well, so our audience can also have a feel of how this new way of, I'm actually excited now I'm curious now. I want to stop everything. But Jacki, let's move to the future. Okay, and a disclaimer here, we are not trying to predict the future, so it's not about writing things on stone, but if you get it right, credits to you. However, it's just a game we play. I love thinking about the future. A lot of people say that I live there already, and it's just a game we play to make our brains work and our audience to understand that we have that part in every single episode of our podcast. So if one of you here listening to the show today want to get more information about other parts of hospitality and find the podcast in our show there, go to the last 10 minutes and you're gonna get what our guest is talking about the future, get some insights. It's just brainstorm information and you may get something that you never thought about before. So disclaimer done, let's get back to Jacki. And what do you think that the future holds for marketing in our environment? Because we are in this no man's land now with the AI, generative AI, and all the VR and everything that's coming through. So what are your predictions?
So when it comes to AI, one, I think the brands that are going to do the best are the ones who are creating really valuable content that's actually going to help people. And I think, again, that's across all of B2B, but especially in our space where those relationships matter the most. So value-added content in shorter snippets, I think is going to be absolutely critical. 2/2.5. Ditch the jargon, right? There's all this B2B jargon, but then there's this hospitality tech jargon. We need to talk about what we are actually doing and how we're adding value, but not just how we're adding value, but how. Then, we already talked about this one a little bit too, but more consumer-like marketing. So less of the same old large ebooks or just boring LinkedIn posts, but something that's a little bit more meaningful, more eye-catching. And another good example, I love that Actable is doing this matchmaking campaign, talking about their integrations, but they're doing it through this lens of we're matchmaking between the different brands. That's fun. It stands out, catches your eye. To me, that has that consumer feel to it. And lastly, I'm thinking we're going to see more of these internal within the company influencers externally, and not just a founder. A founder might be great, but who are these influencers that you're going to see and actually have that be more of their role within the organization? So coming from Amadeus, Katie Morrow is one of those people. So she's on the business intelligence team. She's a fantastic speaker. She has a hotelier background. Her husband is still in the industry, and she is speaking on panels and going to events. I've seen it with Klaus from Ideas, and so he's doing that as well. And these people are incredibly knowledgeable. They have relationships in the industry, but they understand the industry, and you can really look to them as a thought leader. And so the value they're driving is beyond just talking about the product, but what is really going on and what are those challenges we're looking to solve. So I'm hoping and optimistic that we're going to see more of that in the future as well.
I love how you actually predict the future, bringing the human side as a wow factor here. It's not what the technology will do, but how the human will show up using that technology. That's awesome way of seeing it. Jacki, how can our audience get in touch with you and learn more how they can market their products and their companies?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Jacki Schroeder Brown, or visit my website, JackiBrownMarketing.com.
That's super easy. I will put all the links on the notes here. And I'm very grateful for being here. And we are going to have a following up episode more focused on the hotelier side, and I'm very excited to record that one with you too. So if you like this episode, hang on, because there is more to come very soon. Jacki, thank you very much. I really appreciate the chat with you.
Thank you. Take care.
Children, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.